So we welcome you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. As you can see, I'm a day late. This was supposed to be yesterday. So they gave me a post-lunch session yesterday. And the normal script of a post-lunch session speaker is, "Arey, yeah, this is the worst session. This is the graveyard session. So let's take this one." And this is the one session before lunch that will take you to paradise, veritably.
Nobody will ask questions.
I guess this is a session where I know we had enough questions, right? Too many questions. I think we'll try to demystify it. And it happens just before the last day, before paradise. You have a flashback of all the things that happens, right? The entire world goes before you, and there is a Tunga Paradise lunch waiting for you. And you had a lot of food served in various aspects. I try and give a buffet, and I try and take you through a little bit of exposure to what is something different. So this is me, yeah, and I'll quickly take you through what I have been through. My first job was in a place called Ghada Chemicals, where there was chlorination, cyanation, all the kind of hazards. And the first incident, I think, in the country, in the most polluted industrial estate in Ankleshwar, that's where it began. My second job was, and my hairstyle reflects this gentleman called Gattu with Asian Paints, where it was also about, intermediates, production and manufacturing. And they said that there's an emulsion water base that can coagulate and gel, and the alkyd resin that can break away the reaction, can spoil the entire reactor. And there was Castrol, and also a company that took over Castrol called BP. And you heard of BP, not this BP, this BP. And you had two major incidents there. I'll talk a little bit about that. And I got into this entire role of HSSC because of the safety culture at BP. I'll talk about also some of the learnings there. And my next role, I was in the humongous refinery, the biggest refining hub in the world in Jamnagar, in the west coast. This was about setting up an oil and gas project, a refinery, which now has gone to the Russians, and a little bit about what Rajesh Sani talked about, the process safety. I'll demystify it in a way that works. And of course, I thought coming from a refinery to a very benign healthcare, all would be safe. And I found that it wasn't so safe. I had a series of 2 twin fatalities as I began, and I'm sure the process safety is as relevant for healthcare as before. And that's me. And now we're in a couple of industries that manage the same introduction. I'm into something that gets into construction and infra, and the reason I'm late also was we had a incident the other day and we had to manage it. I just want to also talk about a little bit of that and what goes into this. That's about me. So it also happened to be wedding anniversary the other day, and I married my wife some 26 years ago on the 26th of April 2012. Thank you so much. And she was from Bhopal, and she was, they say, I'm one of the guys who's married to a disaster-affected patient. I still feel she gets she's slightly affected, I think, because with wives you always say that.
Have you ever told her?
Yeah.
I think we will tell her.
Always.
You have been affected now.
In fact, I say, she's right. I say every disaster, look at the cycle of disasters. 26 is the date that the disasters normally strike. Think of it, Mumbai turns over it is. Okay, anyway, that's my marriage anniversary. Like I said, the first job that got into technical process safety was in a company called British Petroleum. And you wonder what happened. I will not get into the discussion here, but they put in a high power panel called Baker panel to explain, understand, investigate and find out, and they came with a very comprehensive report. One of the things this company did was, day one after the incident, there was a slide pack that explained to every employee of the company what happened in a phased manner across the 3 months, 4 months that happened. There was a leader slide pack where every leader was supposed to communicate with speaker notes, speak the standard language and explain to the people what happened in terms of sharing, communicating and implementing the built-in standards. We can talk of Bhopal, and Bhopal led to the evolution of process safety management standards. This company also communicated and ensured that all that happened was communicated in a standardized way. So the definition of PSM, I think my good friend Raju already talked about it, but it is the prevention and mitigation of unintentional release of potentially dangerous materials and energy. It's about looking at the catastrophic effect of incidents. Okay, so this is process safety, as you know. So it's the extract from the data panel again. So there's a context out here, friends. The context here is this was about establishing getting HSE right framework. When you ask for a roll call of who is a line manager or safety manager, I kind of put my half hand up because 20 years of the 33 years as I'm supposed to be, I'm very old now. is in operations. Again in operations, so it came into health, safety, security and environment because of this company that put safety first. When every communication from every line manager began with safety, when everything began with safety, it was a typical fantastic safety culture. It was, everyone walked and talked safety. And it was part of the company where they even got the road, vehicles on the road to stop night driving. And you know, if you don't drive in the nights, transportation, logistics get affected, but they did all that. So there is safety that they always company, but that's the kind of culture it was. In spite of it, this happened. And this bigger panel was established thereof to understand, investigate the outcomes of that. So this was the emphasis of process safety that came up here. And there's a lot of things that it said. And also the basic learning was, I think the report talked about process safety culture. So when you talk about safety culture, there is something that is very different here. It's called the process safety culture. So what is the process safety culture, friends? Like I said, this company had established safety as a core value. Like I said, everyone talked safety. However, this was about process safety. So process safety is not at a core value in oil and gas, in refining. So this was a big challenge there. So they say in some of the companies that talk about safety cultural transformation, say you must hold the handrails, wear the seatbelts, and some companies like process says, "Ye to theek hai, start with that, but what about other things?" So there was a big behavioral safety and big human injury focus there, which was having a great record there. It didn't have a process safety culture. So there's a big kind of, the paradox there. A fantastic culture that has safety as its core values. I don't know how many of a company has safety as a core value, fantastic. How many of you got process safety as a core value? Okay, because process safety is not something different. It's not about a process safety management as in the OSHA definition or the Arabic ways or whatever. It's about the management of processes that is done well, that gets you where you are. So this is something that it lacked, and this is the gaps that came up from the Baker panel report, a high panel report that talked about the issues and the gaps and the concerns there was. So what, the OSHA, the standards that came from Bhopal, and we talked about it, Rajiv is given one perspective of that, the 12 elements, 13 elements, or the 22 elements. But this was where it kind of evolved out of. All these parameters where process safety came up. And this is the industries kind of had the option to make or choose. Yeah, you got a plated mixed vegetable, but you can choose which is the model and establish process safety the way you want. I'll talk about my experience from the learnings from the BP and the Texas City refinery and of course the Gulf of Mexico, how we understood process safety and how we implemented it. So this was a refinery on the west coast, Vadinar, Jamnagar, and how we implemented process safety. So my 15-minute discussion is going to be about explaining how we implement. People have told you what is process safety. I will tell you the how. We talked about how do we engage the line manager in process safety, how do we engage the line manager in behavioral change and safety. The challenge is you need a film to get into this industry, so we'll tell you how we can do it with or without films. Okay? So this is again how we implemented process safety in a comprehensive and structured manner across refinery. A refinery that was going to start up, and the refinery that got commissioned and touch wood without incidents. Okay? Let's see where it began. So these are the elements, okay? The 13 elements as you were, right? Rajesh, I captured most of them. So how do you implement them? So what we tried to do was to break it up. The first thing you do is 13 is not easy number to divide. You broke it up into various elements, okay? So what did you do? We tried to take up 5 by 5 and 5. So we had a 3-year, I was there refining for 3 years. So we implemented this in a standard systematic manner. We used various different techniques. I don't know if you heard of this. The guy called Greg Chappell, who tried to implement 6 thinking hats in the Indian cricket team. क्या किया उसने? He told Saurav Ganguly, boss, आप थोड़ा हट जाओ बाजू में. He told Sachin Tendulkar, आप थोड़ा rotate, come into this opener role. So 6 thinking hats also is an approach to get people to wear the hat. Which is having a discussion about one of the collapse of a girder we had in one of our facilities there. And we said we do all the checklists, do all the inspections, do all the hibiscus and all that stuff. And we kind of get so fluid that we don't even look at what happens outside. We really look at the failure modes of how things could go wrong. How a particular fastener or a particular pleat is not in place, how it can impact, how an O-ring can affect a big NASA dispatch. So this is a gentleman who is wearing a black hat. So what is the role of a black hat? The role of a black hat in Edward D. Bono's 6 thinking hat, that's called lateral thinking, is to identify how things can go wrong. And sometimes when you say that this won't work, this session won't work, was too much of gyan. So there's always somebody, and if you say it in a manner where people won't like to listen to all these negatives. What if we say I'm wearing a red hat and thinking that if you slot this guy's speech just before lunch, it's going to take 25 minutes, हम सब भूखे मर जाएंगे. But I'm wearing a black hat and saying it, then you think, oh, this guy is talking sense. So it's about having a concept of having somebody, a plug-in person who talks from a perspective where the black hat and says, this is how things can go wrong. Again, a red hat is a person who talks from the heart, who talks of how things can work. So what we did was we tried to engage various functions in identifying and leading them. So while we do it for various systems and procedures, we identified elements of process safety and got functional heads to lead this. This gentleman was the head of mechanical integrity and asset reliability. We did a benchmarking of best practices about RBPS, CCPS, and that classical OSHA model to try and build this. And he led this. He was the head of maintenance and engineering, and every day, every meeting, you kind of tell operation how things go wrong and how badly they're doing. But then we got to put the black hat on top of this element. This gentleman here is the guy who was the head of learning and development. We got him to lead employee participation in safety culture. So across the various, and the guy in the center is the head of the refinery who managed the overall process. So the various hats and the various roles they played. So we tried to put in Ergo into a refinery. And these are all guys from IOC, guys who kind of come with mind. They said, अच्छा मौत हो गई, अच्छा contractor भी तो है ना. Or we had an issue about marine, coral reef. Corals, अरे इधर का उधर कर दो यार. So the kind of attitude and the focus on safety, or the kind of lack of focus, total lack of understanding of safety was something high. But in spite of that, we got this implemented. So we took these elements here and split it up across 3 years, like I said. And I think you've seen the model here. And this is where the split between the various elements of process safety happens. Between the knowledge and operational control, the incident learning and response, hazard application control, this is the bedrock of safety. So this is how we're going to split the process safety management model, refining it as it were, and try to convert it into something that works for us. But the fun part of it was, we defined the process itself. It was led by a couple of process safety experts with refining background who came from Kuwait and had a good background. We coopted members into the teams, we got cross-functionality, ownership and accountability to various functions, I'll come back to that, and we got them to kind of look at each of the elements in a systemic manner, made a plan in-house. And how it worked was, this was the roadmap we made and built in an implementation plan across these various elements, and we used the standards. We also parallelly implemented an integrated refinery management system, looking at the ISO 14000 and the OSHAs, so built that parallelly. And this was the way we kind of implemented it. So I'll cut to the chase here. So I talked of splitting it into chewable bites. So what did we do? We had these 13 elements. We started with each of these. We started with first 5. This was refinery under construction. So what the first challenge about contractors coming in, about refinery erection, commissioning, hot work. And this was about ensuring that we got a pre-startup safety review in place. Obviously the function that owned pre-startup safety was projects, a no-brainer. We also had safe working procedures that was owned by operations, was kind of waiting for the project to get commissioned. So they said, what do we do? We said, build SOP, safe operating procedures. So building safety in design, going into the manuals, understanding it fully, that was what they built. We had, of course, a couple of fire stations and fire protections. So we had an emergency response team, an emergency response plan, and this of course done by fire safety. HR did, like I said, employee participation safety culture. Process safety information was done by actually quality under technical services. So we built in 5 elements and wrote it out with this process owners with the hat that I said, with the functional ownership out here. And then again got down to the next elements, management of change by technical services, permit to work by safety, and of course compliance orders again came to safety, quantity safety management project. So year by year we rolled out each of the elements. Across 3 years, we had a fantastic system that worked. We had parameters that kind of worked. We had it part of the KRS of function owners, a kind of snapshot of how we reviewed each of the goals and how we ensured that they understood, broke down because of technical expertise from the industry, and got this taken as an annual plan year on year and implemented this in the way that worked here, and the kind of review mechanisms of the way we have here. So this is the parameters we had to build in the plans, and based on the plans, based on the completions, we tracked them and kind of ensured that we had a green, if not a blue, to ensure that we had a completion of the process safety elements implementation across the year. So the magic here is, as the head of health, safety, environment and fire, I was new to the industry. I had no clue what happened in the oil and gas industry. I was new to the entire industry. But a very developed team of experts got them to wear the functional hats to own the process of the elements. And voila, we had a refinery that, touchwood, till this day has 1400 days without a recordable incident. 1400 days.
many process safety incidents they had? You said recordable injuries.
You'll come back to that. You'll come back to that. So one of the other things that I think of the Arul bit is that and I think right here in L&D, 3-4 years back, we had some programs where they talked of CCPS program happened here, where they talked of lead and lag indicators, and we talk of lead and lag indicators and we normally talk of injuries. So like I said for the BP model, it's not just about injuries, it's about capturing the indicators for process safety. So defining and refining the process safety lead indicators and the lag indicators obviously is something that we then got into doing. From scratch, each of the work streams or each of the element owners had to identify lead indicators, slips, process trips, lockout, all the elements of all that happened, we tried to build it in, and there were incidents. There was a couple of fires, there wasn't a loss of life, there were shutdowns, and the refinery hiccup. If it stops for one day, you can imagine the impact on the refinery.
So if there is a minor gasket leakage.
Yeah, all of it. Yeah. So what we did was from the hierarchy of Hellish pyramid. So I'll share a slide, come back to that in a minute. So we have that entire hierarchy of reporting, and when I said there was no fatalities at the end outcome, so no major process disasters, but there were incidents that happened, there were fires. So we captured each of these from the equivalent of the slip trips and falls to the unsafe observations. We had all of that. So we tried to build in a pyramid network. Okay. So this is how we kind of worked on the elements. We had a couple of platforms that we built in-house to ensure that we identified and tracked all the lead and lag indicators for process safety, especially because for the refinery, when Crunchy, we had a couple of heads from Caltex, so there was a little bit of behavioral safety interface also apart from the IOC heads. We tried to build in each of the platforms, and you can see what I say the status of the review indicate what exactly we did in each of the elements. Okay? Incident, reporting investigation, IRIS recorded to the platform, how to ensure that whatever he said is captured, how it is investigated, how you do fiber analysis given on a processing incident, how you do a technical incident, how do you ensure that every emergency response, every plan, every kind of turnout is captured, the number of minutes it takes for the turnout, everything kind of is mapped. Okay, so that's on the refinery front. So oil and gas people, these are questions. I know you promised not to ask questions before lunch, but here's one break to ask questions on PSM in refining. Any questions? I just shared with an approach of what's worked well with the refinery. We sold the concept of zero harm to the refinery head. We told him that this is what will get us. He said on day one of every month, we have a theme of every month. We discuss all that. We said what are the incidents that happened in the previous month. We share the learnings across each of the functions, each of the businesses, and we learn from them and we take the commitment and get total employee engagement in goal zero for a refinery. It is one of the biggest and most hazardous industries you can think of, but if it's worked in one place in a company that is, not MNC kind of thing, although we did try to acquire a couple of shell companies, and we had to acquire a shell company in UK, in a company called, in a place called Chester. We asked them, how is your safety systems? And they said, we are Shell. We will ask you, how are your safety systems? So that's the kind of challenges we had, including the company in Kenya that we acquired. So that's the kind of journey we had. So I just move into the other benign kind of thing, which is about healthcare, and I'll take this, yeah.
MOC, how you implemented through online?
So the management of change is about ensuring that there are a lot of changes that happen in the design, fabrication, erection, commissioning, and the running refinery. Each of these change has a flow, a process flow. Who are the people who are supposed to review a change? What are the implications? And it's got several implications you the refinery. So all this is automated with action tracking system. All the processes, checklists were incorporated in place. All the people who are involved were kind of there in the loop. So while you have a manual document in the earlier days which comes in and you look at the impact, you look at the implication, the risk assessment, find out. So this one was done online. Okay, it's got an outcome management outcome. It has the feedback loops in terms of escalations, communications. So MOC is online, done by technical services. So healthcare, like I said, simple, benign industry, but it's got all these highly hazardous chemicals and solvents that work, and we have also formulations. I think Rajesh spoke about powders, dust explosions. So all this, some of what happens in API. So, and we have a typical, here again, we implemented a DuPont process safety management system. DuPont comes in with a different kind of setup there, but another good learning here. So this is the 22 elements of process safety, which is something related to what you can relate to. But it divides it into various elements, and the 3 elements are here, the 3 sections are here. It divides management of change into 3 elements, management of change, this is where it says here. MOC is into 3 places, it talks of all of it. So this is the kind of facilities, technology and personnel. It talks of all of these and obviously starts with leadership commitment. So this is a model that we adopted to get these 20 elements in place. So this consists of basically two, the behavioral safety and the process of the risk management element. This is the 14 plus 2 that works in. Again, the process of risk management is a kind of model there. So even here, you do safety perception surveys for behavior, but this is a safety perception survey for process safety. To try to understand the elements of employee self-assessment for process safety, which is something that is difficult and unique, but also was done to understand where we were. And against a scale of 5, you can see this is where we found ourselves rated, right? Where is it? Is it the red or the green? Red, totally. So this is the DuPont wheel, as we say, and operational excellence is the way that it goes through. But the management commitment, leadership, personal technology facilities, and I think some of the companies here have achieved that. But this is the journey that we started. Like we talked of management of change, personnel, management of subtle changes, and management of technology. This splits into various elements. We have various work streams towards each of these, and we kind of talk of the entire adaptation of the PSM model as appropriate for given industry that would be relevant to you. So this is the kind of elements. Okay. So what was done here? I'm talking of the approach in a couple of case studies here. So I'm not talking so much of each element and understanding what happens there. But each of the elements, this was the Apex committee, and we had a safety committee which looked at each of the elements. And guess what? Who are the leaders of the safety committee? All line managers, all business heads, and they were coached and convinced, and they got into the leadership roles, including safety observations, contractor safety. We got them involved. So we also focused on ensuring that they understood the roles, accountabilities. So there's a couple of terms that is used very interchangeably. Said you are accountable and responsible for safety. So again, that's a misnomer. So basically, who's accountable? Accountability is something that cannot be really delegated. Accountability is the guy who has executive power, the guy who goes to jail in case of an incident. He's the guy who's the owner, a factory or factory manager or a process owner or the business head. So accountable are the people who own, the people the line, and the people, all of us, safety committee, also are got a role, and that role is responsibility. If you're able to identify and distinguish between the accountability and responsibility, I think a large part of what we discussed in the morning can be addressed here. So anyway, this is what was done in this entire committee. So each of the elements had evolution of standard that was designed by the line managers. We had high other activities. We had broken up PSM to various elements. We also took up, and Dr. The occupational health and safety also taken up here. So this is the way we took up as healthcare. Obviously, health, industrial hygiene, and exposure also is very critical. So this is the way we split up into various work streams, got procedures made, got each of the committees involved, engaged. We called this transformation Parivartan, and you heard of this DuPont Bradley curve, you can call it anyway, going from being reactive to proactive, the journey towards these. And I think you asked another question about what, and I think defining the kind of process, the technical safety pyramid is something that even few industries do. Because when you talked of the BP example, you constantly look at this pyramid, that incident pyramid, but then this is something we forget. Also, like I said, even the injuries, below the injuries also are the illnesses. Sometimes, in the heated summer, we had a heat stroke incident in one of our facilities in the East Coast, and we found out that before that incident, there were so many people who came to the health center complaining of fatigue, tiredness, nausea, vomiting, dizziness, stomachache, which are all symptoms of heat stroke. And there are 5 stages of heat stroke to look at it. So getting down to the bottom of the pyramid, even one step lower than this, illness also is important. But what I'm talking of here is a technical pyramid that goes beyond these. And we talk about integrity risks, mechanical integrity, quality assurance, interlocks, vessel, ray falls, and all these are what you capture. We build in metrics and ensure that lead and lag indicators are captured for a process safety incident pyramid, and that really ensures that you go safe. Like I said, it's obvious there. While you incident investigate using the 5I analysis of whatever the comprehensive list of causes to get the systemic causes and get the system and prevent the incidents, you also know to look at the proactive measure, the lead indicators, look at the bottom of the pyramid, try and fix that. Finally, for all of us, before the happy ending, and they say that in Maharashtra, every Marathi movie has a happy ending. You're happy it's ended. So, whether in a process industry or in whatever industry we are, they talk of the bedrock of safety being risk assessment. So they say everything is different, everything is complicated, checklists are, each line of business is different. But here is the Guru Mantra, 3 questions that can get you to be safe, 3 questions if you ask that takes care of risk assessment. The first question is, the first question is, what am I doing? Right now, what am I doing, gentlemen? I am passing time before lunch, but I'm also standing in front of a podium, and if I take one step forward, what happens? Yeah. So it's about situational awareness of the conditions around which the activities we're doing. It's about the activities we're planning to do, and if you go out for lunch now, I take a step here and walk there. So it's about situational awareness. The second question is about what can go wrong. This is something that very few of us do in our risk assessment. We go to a checklist and stay with that. What can go wrong is about the hazard that are present in the task that I'm about to do. Okay? This is about the alertness to the hazards. And the third question is, what can you do differently to avoid getting hurt or causing harm? It's about avoidance. So 3 Q&As, ladies and gentlemen, a simple Guru Mantra to avoid incidents and go zero harm. First one about awareness, situational awareness. Second one is about alertness to the hazards and mitigate the risk by avoidance. So awareness, alertness and avoidance. 3 question and answers to get you. Be safe and have a happy lunch. So whatever the situation, we're famous. Who's the gentleman on the tree here, cutting the bark of the tree? The famous poet?
Kalidas.
Yeah, he kind of became a great poet after the fall, but not all of us can emulate him, should not. So what am I doing? Evaluate the environment and conditions of required work activity. Second question, how can I be injured? What could go wrong? Third, what can you do to prevent injury or harm? So the 3 questions here, as simple as 1, 2, 3. Be mindful of environment conditions, think of future situation and take actions to prevent injury. Right, friends? I had till 1:30 to take you guys through lunch. So this is the slide that should get you into questions. Think. You got how many minutes before question before lunch break?
1 minute.
Okay. That's my coordinates and happy to take it online, offline. I'm in LinkedIn, I'm on all the social platforms, so connect and ask me questions.
So one question is
Please,
a bit of word. This reporting of process safety incidents. Because we follow, our target report is 500 Tier 3 process safety incidents. Last year we achieved, this year also it is more than that. Its KPI is increased. So while reporting, that is API guidelines are be used, and this year it is revised. The quantities are revised. First is in any what is the difference between a process safety incident and normal incident? This industrial hygiene, head se girna, these are all personal safety accidents. For a process safety, it should be loss of primary containment. LOPC. If there is an LOPC, that is a process safety incident. There are 3 categories: Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3. So Tier 3 reporting is a key. For other industry and safety professionals, we should go and start reporting the Tier 3, like gland leakages, valve leakages, minor leakages, and these are Tier 3 incidents. So if you report that, it will not reach a leakage or explosion or kind of bomb incident.
So being proactive is as critical in process safety, if it's more critical because the secret, the
So
incidents can be
even
low.
we can have an ASSE sharing of what is the
Webinar we can have.
yeah.
You can have one webinar.
Yes.
Absolutely. So Arun talks about load workers, speaking of simple local incidents, but the impact of process safety is catastrophic, right? So that is one reason why we got to focus more on that. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Very well done.
Thank you, Madhu.
Can we quickly summarize? Request chair and co-chair to please summarize the session.
Yeah, sure.